everybody, Ryan here from Music City Live. Welcome to the show. I'm here with Mario Circelli. Mario, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Musician, broadcast journalist, documentary filmmaker, and father.
I like the last moniker, the father. Yeah. That's the most important one.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we came on, right? It's how time flies, and it is the most important one. And I try to make as much time as I can for them, but this industry can be kind of crazy sometimes.
I can imagine you guys are very, very busy, but it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do.
Absolutely, the best is like it was happened to me again a few days ago, where my 1-year-old, and she can barely, because our bed is pretty high, but she grabs onto the sheets and she's pulling to get up on top, and she gets up on top and she gets in on my wife's side and she pulls the sheets up over her and she's like, "Daddy, sleep with daddy." And she just amazing, just unbelievable. You'll never get it back,
and you'll never forget it. Yeah, you'll never get it back, and you'll never forget it. You're right.
Yeah, no, it's good times right now. It's all in the fun until the girls turn into their teenage years, and then it'll be chaos, I'm sure. But it's all good. We'll get through it. So you're from
London, Ontario, born and raised in London, Ontario.
And I told you before we came on here that I went to John Paul II. Where did you go?
I went to South Collegiate Institute, and that's where some formative years for me. I had a lot of fun at South. Yeah, it was a great school.
Cool. And what was early days like for you in terms of life? What was life like for Mario?
Wow, that is you're getting philosophical right off the hop.
I mean, might as well start at the beginning.
It came from an immigrant family. My folks, my dad came to London, Ontario in 1951. He came as part of a government-sponsored labor program. So the only way he was able to emigrate to Canada was to agree to work on a farm, to be a laborer on a farm for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
They're Italian, so back home he left my mom, my older sister, and a brother, and they did not reunite for 2 years.
Really?
So 2 years after Dad came, the family reunited in London, and we've had roots here ever since. And myself and an older sibling were born here in Canada, Victoria Hospital.
Hey, there you go. Me too.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. And was there, where did music come into the whole thing? Like, was music a thing in your house?
It really was. You know what? If I can just quickly, pivot a little bit, I'm really impressed with not only the set here, but your line of questioning and the way this is starting to grow. I think people should I think people should know that we haven't scripted this.
No.
You invited me to come on. Let's just talk, and this is fantastic. Music was a big part of my life early on for a couple reasons, and I remember my dad, particularly on Sunday mornings. It was very ritual. We'd wake up, have a little breakfast, and everybody would put on the best clothes we had to go to church. And after church, come home, and we'd have our big Sunday meal, and then the old man would, after eating, would sit back and put some Italian jazz on the stereo, and I would sit next to him and just listen, and that was my first real exposure to music. And I'll never forget being maybe 5-6 years old when he entrusted me to go to the old Grundig stereo, and actually allowed me to lift the tone arm off,
wow,
flip the record over, and put it back on, and it made me feel really special. It's like, okay, that's it. So that, and my siblings are much older than I, so my sister, was the oldest in the family, and an older brother gave me exposure to stuff like the Beatles and the Stones and Frank Zappa. And so I basically started to usurp all of their music, all of their records, and protected it. They were older than I, so I played their records more than they did.
Tell me you or them still has some of those records.
I do.
Amazing.
It's a great question. Yeah, I do have all of them. I have a Beatles single. It was You can't do that, and Can't Buy Me Love on the flip side.
Wow.
That my sister got from a friend who had visited the UK one summer and brought her
wow.
back a 45, and I still have that. I still have all those original records. My older brother's Chicago #2,
Wow.
which I still have, and every once
That's
in a
awesome.
while I'll take out the poster and look at the pics of the band. Yeah.
You know, even just talking about it, like the smile on your face about the whole thing. I do the same thing. I have a vinyl collection at home. I've been collecting for years. I DJ'd on vinyl my whole DJ career when I was DJing in the clubs and everything. I mean, digital DJing came out, but I wasn't that into it. It was pretty new at the time. And then I stopped DJing and got into this stuff, right? But vinyl for me still is amazing and an intimate thing that, you know, I have friends of mine who come over and, you know, we'll have a couple drinks in the basement. And, you know, I tell them now, like, hey, bring some vinyl over, because all three of us collect vinyl. So like, hey, you guys bring some stuff over. I got a few new things. Let's throw some stuff on. And we listen to an album cover to cover, right? And that's what we do. And we're hanging out and, you know, but it's just a different experience, right?
Well, listen to yourself. You're old enough to know, but you're young enough to have seen and embraced a lot of new technology. But how did you refer to it? You referred to it as your collection.
That's right.
And that's the big difference now. And you made a couple very interesting and poignant points. For example, you referred to it as your collection. And it was something of that regard to us.
Yes.
We were proud of that. And as young kids, it wasn't unheard of on a Friday night or a Saturday night. I'd have some friends come over, you know, being 12, 13, 14 years old. They'd come to our house and we'd cram into my room and listen to Pink Floyd, right? Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure kids get that anymore.
It's so different, right? I mean, the logic I think behind it is that, well, I have all the music here on my phone, and that's great. But what ends up happening is, because it's a more instant experience, it's also something where, do you even listen to the entire song? Do you even listen to the entire album? I mean, the attention span of these people can be so small sometimes, and that's not saying it in a bad way. It's just what it is. People just like, oh, what about that song? And they flip to the next song. They may have only gotten through a verse chorus or something, right? Like, yeah. And when I was DJing, I found that too. I found that there was DJs out there like me that would play at least half the song, like at least a couple of verses. And then there was other people that, I swear, by the end of their hour and a half set, they had a stack of vinyl, like, you know, almost as high as their crate, because they were changing songs so fast they couldn't even put the vinyl back in the sleeve. Yeah. Right. And so I find that is probably the case with young people, is that they just want that instant thing. Whereas for me, I'm like you, where I want to take that vinyl, take it out of the sleeve, look at the liner notes, look at the poster if one's included, put it on, start at the beginning, take the journey, right? And that's the thing, is that I think that's just a different experience. And young people are getting into it. Vinyl sales are the highest they've ever been. So vinyl is still selling, and young people are getting into it. I saw at Rock the Park here in London a couple of years in a row, I've seen people selling vinyl. And so that's great. I mean, I asked a couple of artists recently, are you still making CDs? And there's artists that aren't making CDs, but they're making vinyl. And to be even different, one of them even told me they're making cassettes.
Crazy.
Right?
The cassette days of what, the 80s, when everybody was doing their mixtapes.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I love my vinyl collection, and I, you know, and whenever I even remotely hear of any of my friends like, I'm thinking of getting rid of, nope, what do you got? You know, what do you got?
Let me sift through it.
Let me see what you got there. But yeah, it's and it's tough because, you know, vinyl these days, I mean, when I used to buy vinyl, I used to buy UK singles were probably the more albums were the more expensive, but
well, you were doing clubs.
I was doing clubs, so UK singles were expensive, you know, and you know, to get one song usually back then was, you know, at that time, which was 90s, you know, at that time was anywhere from $12 to $20 a song. and that was a UK import. Now, because a lot of the music I was playing was coming out of the UK, Germany, Belgium, Italy, those places. Some of it was coming out of the US and some out of Canada, mostly Quebec and stuff. But dance music was mostly breaking in Europe first and then coming here, for the most part. But it was expensive, I thought, back then, especially for how much we were getting paid to DJ some of those gigs. And now, you go online and you look at some of these records are 30, 40 plus dollars, right? Yeah. 50. Yeah. So, to some young people, they're like, oh, why would I do that? I can stream it for $5 a month.
Spotify,
and that's all cool. But it's a different thing.
It's totally different. And the way you described it and explained it is bang on. It was personal for you. It's tactile. It's your collection. You described, pulling the record out of the sleeve, and I bet you probably smelled it. The first one you pulled out before you put on the platter, you gave it a little whiff. Ah, there it is. And then you go through the liner notes. And I think kids these days, I work with a lot of youth at the Digital Creative Arts Center. I think they're missing something really cool. That record collection represented who we were. It described who we were. In some cases, even our values, what we believed in, what side we were on, to go back to the Quadrophenia thing, the mods and the rockers, right? And you took the time to read the liner notes. Oh, it was recorded here, or so-and-so played on the record. And now I work with youth, and depending on the program that I'm running, I try to understand for them. I want to learn from them. Where do you listen to your music? Oh, it's Spotify or YouTube. How do you find new music? Oh, well, Spotify or YouTube will tell me. I'll say, well, you like this, you might like that. So we used to read magazines. We'd listen to radio, or we'd had friends, I'm getting together with Ryan Saturday. We're going to listen to the new, whatever record. And you would have introduced me to something new, and then I'd pick up on that. And there's that symbiosis, that give and take of sharing music that I just don't think exists anymore.
No, I think it can, but I just don't. It's like nightclubs going away too, like dance clubs and stuff are disappearing. And
are they really? Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll get into venues later, but yeah. And I think a lot of it is just because we had this blip of time called COVID, where a whole group of university students didn't go to clubs, didn't do things the way that the previous couple of years before them did. And so I've talked to quite a few people that have talked about that, where whatever was the norm and kind of got passed down to the frosh, that didn't happen. Because there was a couple of years, where that didn't happen. So I think it's the same with music in a sense that, and I'll quote a buddy of mine, Matt Adele. Matt was one of the people involved with Napster back in the day. And I had him out at my show at the CDJ show in Toronto when I used to do it. He said on stage, he's like, one of the things that used to happen was that young people used to get tribal around music. And now they're getting tribal around social networks and technology. And so that's where the real underlying part of the shift happened, right? Because young people now, even my daughters, my 1-year-old knows how to operate an iPad. Literally. I mean, she does. And she doesn't know when she pushes the wrong thing, she doesn't know how to fix it yet. But my 6-year-old obviously does.
Yeah, she knows how to activate it.
Oh, she knows exactly. And she knows how to get into my phone. She remembers my passcode. She knows how to get to the apps she wants to go to watch the things she wants to watch, play the game she wants to play. And so, young people now, even at the youngest of ages, are getting tribal around technology and games and social networks. I wouldn't say instead of music, but music is just a part of it now. Yeah. Whereas back then, you didn't have that device. There was maybe a TV around, but that was a different thing. You weren't inviting a bunch of people over to watch the TV unless you were watching a sports game or some sort of an engagement. But the music thing was something you could share in together, and something you could even go out to. You go to a live concert together. Oh, we both like Metallica. Let's go to the Metallica concert. Right. Whereas, are concerts still happening? Are people still going to them? Yeah, absolutely. But it's even that's shifted a bit. You're seeing more festivals now, right? You're seeing less people be able to sell tours to younger people, and more festival stuff happening that's more successful, right? Now, tours are still happening. It's just certain genres are having a hard time selling tickets because there's not as many people coming out to those shows, right? So you're having to look for smaller venues, and we'll get into the venue conversation later, but those smaller venues are becoming harder to come by.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's another way that I think youth today are missing out. But that's a great point your friend made about the tribalism over music versus tribalism over the social networks. And that's very astute. And I didn't look at it that way, but it certainly makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was music around, getting back to early days, there was music around your house. How did you get into music? Like, what was your first thing into music?
As I said, early on, I usurped the home stereo. So it became mine. And I started usurping my older siblings' music and taking care of it. A couple other things happened. I was sick as a child when I was very young. I spent the better part of a year when I was 7, 8 years old in hospital. And when I was released, when I got out of the hospital, I was not permitted to attend school or to do a lot of the normal things that kids would do. So I stayed at home listening to records and listening to radio. And I'll tell you a quick funny story. With this beautiful stereo that that my dad had, I would try to, even as a 7, 8 year old, tune in stations from as far as I possibly could.
Oh, that's cool.
And I would land most often on stations from Detroit. So I fell in love with Motown and soul and stuff like that. And
you could get stations from Detroit back then?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, that was my introduction to Motown and the Supremes and all of that stuff. But the funny thing, Ryan, is that the DJs used to say, and coming up in the next set, Diana Ross will be in, and Marvin Gaye will be in. And I actually thought that the artists were going in and they would be at the radio station performing. It took me a little while to figure out, oh, they're just playing records, right? Yeah. But I guess I could be forgiven as a 7-year-old, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and I became passionate about music because I spent a lot of time on my own. And then my musical journey really started when I was in grade 4 or 5, and my dad bought me my first acoustic guitar, and I took some lessons.
What guitar was it? Do you remember?
Oh God, it was probably some Kmart. It was probably it was whatever he could afford,
Sure.
but he felt like the kid wants to play music. He wants to learn how to play guitar, and he showed up one Saturday afternoon. He left the house early, showed up one Saturday afternoon, and he had, here you go, I bought you a guitar. Like, I didn't care, right? I didn't care if it was a Yamaha or a Patrick or whatever. I had a guitar, and they launched me onto lessons, and it didn't take me very long to realize that I was not going to be a very good guitarist. So a few years after that, by the time I was in grade 7, 8, I migrated to a bass guitar. I started playing bass, and my first bass guitar that they bought me was a Rickenbacker, beautiful Starburst Rickenbacker, and I was slightly better at bass guitar, 2 less strings, nice. Different technique, slower paced on the finger patterns on the neck. So I was slightly better at that. And then in grade 8, I was at a friend's house who was had a drum set, and I sat down behind the kit, and I remember we were trying to jam out Zeppelin's. Oh gosh, now I can't remember the name of it, but not Good Times, Bad Times.
Oh, geez.
Anyway, but it was a Zeppelin tune, and I just started, and I realized, wow, okay, I think I can do this. I can coordinate my hands, and yeah, I could move my foot, and that was it. And then the next year, I went out and bought my very first kit was a Pearl. Hung on to that for a few years, and then graduated when I was into high school. Graduated to a Yamaha kit. Played that for a few years and started playing in bands. And by grade 9, grade 10 at South was where I played live in front of people with myself and some wonderful people. John Charlton, who went on to be Planet People, and Steve Wohler, who played in a band called the Really Big Elephants back then. We played our first show in the auditorium at South High School.
That's
and
cool.
That was it from there.
That's amazing. And then after high school, did you go to college, university? Like, where did you go from there?
Well, interesting story. So my intention was, as I said, I was playing in bands by grade 10, grade 11. By the time I was in grade 12, we were already, getting together with some friends who were playing gigs at the embassy and places like that. We couldn't stay in there. We'd go in, set up, then we'd have to leave, then go back in to do the show, and then pack up and leave because we were underage. I wanted to be a musician, but I came from a family that really professed education. So, because my parents never had a chance to really attend school, and they were determined that we all would.
Right.
And so I had promised my mom, early in high school that I was going to go to university. But in the back of my mind, that was just to make her happy. I was going to be a musician. And I'll never forget in grade 13, because I'm of the vintage that we had to, if you were going to go to university, you had to do grade 13.
That's right.
They don't do that anymore. Had a meeting with my guidance counselor, and it was like, "What are you going to do now?" type of conversation.
Of course.
And so I said to him, "Well, I'm going to Western. I registered. I don't remember if I'd been accepted or not at that point, but I'm going to Western. But it doesn't really matter, Mr. Banks, because I'm going to be a musician." And he just looked at me like I had three heads. I said, no, seriously. I mean, we're already playing in bands, so-and-so and so-and-so. Well, and you've seen us play. We played, school dances and this assembly and that. Yeah. But what are you really going to do? And so I thought about it, and I go, well, I guess if I can't be a musician, I'll be, maybe I'll go into journalism. I do really well in English, and I've been told that I can write. But I left that meeting, it was like, dude, music is where it's at for me.
Sure.
And so I went to Western, did a degree in sociology with a minor in film, and all through my university, I was playing music, playing in several different bands. One in particular toured across Ontario. We had a video on Much Music. We came second in the CFNY Great Ontario Talent Search. We had some interest from A&M Canada was looking at us. And then in my graduating year, my fourth year at Western, after A&M passed on us, it kind of dawned on me that, maybe this isn't going to be your future. Maybe you're not going to be able to raise a family playing music. And so I went into journalism after that and went to Fanshawe and did broadcast journalism.
Crazy.
But I didn't abandon music completely. I still continued to play. I played in bands even after that, and right up till our children were born. And I maintained an interest in music, not only as a passion and as a consumer, but also as an advocate, because I came across some of the the best musicians I'd ever come across right here in London, Ontario. Your dad, Ron, was a part of that scene, and he and I, we had connected in the mid '80s, and then we reconnected in the early '90s when I went to work at Western, managing CHRW, and the PA shop was the go-to supplier for all the shows that came through campus. So it was just that being involved in the community, being a part of that community, meeting people like Scott Bentley, 63 Monroe was, I'm very certain, was the first local band I ever saw as an underager, probably 17 at the Blue Boot. And that inspired me. And then when you look back on it and you go, I shared a stage with Ted Peacock and Rob LaRose and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you realize those were all are all phenomenal musicians.
Absolutely. Yeah, Rob LaRose actually was working here for a little while in the percussion
Was he?
shop. Yeah. Great
He's moved Sarnia way now.
Yeah,
right?
he has.
Yeah.
He was just here the other day. He told me that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing about that, so you ended up going, what was the name of that band?
Well, I played in a couple bands, but the band that had the video on Much Music was Thin Line.
Oh yeah,
we called Thin Line.
Okay, so we have photos of this, Jer. Want to bring them up?
Oh no, man! I'm surprised you do, because not a lot of stuff survived. We broke up in a blaze of fury.
So tell me what. So let's go through them. What's this?
That's me playing. That's us playing Call the Office. When the stage was a little farther outset.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Wearing a Bauhaus t-shirt.
That's awesome.
And I can't remember if that was playing with a punk band called Fear of Dogma, or the Thin Line.
You got some Rototoms on there?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely. The Rototoms and the Ran can, the trash can.
That's awesome.
I love that. You guys probably wouldn't even allow that in your store these days.
No. No.
But I loved it because it was so noisy. And
Is this like a band poster?
that's a band poster that was on our early promo kit. Andrew McPherson was our lead singer. He's the fella lower right who went on. He is Mr. Echo Deck and actually Juno nominated. Rolf up top performed as Riddlin' Boy and SFH, not to be confused with the London SFH.
Yeah.
And one of his bandmates in SFH was Warren Kinsella, the political pundit, and then myself and Richard Fry, just a phenomenal bass player wearing the toque, who went on to play with White Picket Frenzy, I believe, and Jed House, and was the original bass player for Adam West, Dave Merritt, Steve Crew, those guys. Yeah.
When would this have been? When would this poster have been?
That would have been 84, 85,
Okay.
85, 86.
Oh, that was a good time for music, man.
It's a great time.
Yeah.
And London was so vibrant. You mentioned earlier about the venues. There were so many venues to choose from, and people, again, the people were so excited about things that a lot of times it's like we're going downtown without a destination, because you knew I'm heading downtown because we'll pop into Call the Office or the Brunswick or Fry Fogel's or later the Electric Banana, or any number of things. And the community was actually really well stitched together and collaborative. Not just the fans who supported, but the musicians themselves. And it was an exciting point. Things ebb and flow, of course.
Yep.
But the late 70s with that movement, and then it started to fizzle a little bit, and then in the mid 80s started to pick up again, and with bands like Idiot Savant, which became Suffer Machine, Sheep Look Up, It's a Schiza, The Waiting. How could you forget The Waiting, who came together at the Music Industry Arts program. And just so much oh my gosh, and all the hardcore and the punk bands.
The punk scene was huge.
The Black Donnellys and so many their names just escape me. And then it fizzled out a little bit the tail end, and then the 90s. It was huge. Again, with Gordy Pryor's band, Blue Bones, and Boris is Back, and the Gandharvas, right?
Who recorded here at Shoutouts?
They sure did.
At the time with Dan.
That's right. Yeah. They did. Adam West, and the Morganfields, Alan Piggins, right?
Yeah.
And then it would dovetail down again, and they would pick up. I think the music scene is doing just fine now. I wish we had more venues.
Yeah, amen.
And getting back to your original point, I wish the consumers, I wish young people would value music the way we did. You took it personally, right?
I still do. I still do all the time. I mean, that's part of why I'm doing this show, is because I see the value in everything that anyone I was telling you earlier, like I don't just want to honor the people who are the artists. I want to honor the people who are in the entire community.
Right.
Because everybody, you're not in this for the money. I mean, you're in this because you love it. And that passion, I think, needs to transcend to future generations. I think it's very highly important.
And if I could be so bold for you, it's a choice to a certain extent, but you're a legacy. So it's kind of in your blood with the foundation that your dad, that Ron laid down, because he was a musician as well.
Yeah, bass player.
And then, getting into the production end of it and the corporate side of things. So you grew up in it.
Oh yeah, I was immersed in it. Literally, I have a series we do on the show called Inside the Road Case. And it's funny because me and my brother always used to say, we were basically born inside a road case, because we were like, I still have fond memories of, my dad having to babysit me because my mom had to go somewhere and my dad had to go do a teardown. So he'd stick me and my brother in the front of a 5-ton truck. And here we go, I don't know what time it was, but it was past their bedtime. And here we go to this gig to do a teardown, and we just thought this was like the coolest thing in the world. And I remember one time we were going to the NAC here in town, and we were super young, and this was when the NAC still played rock music and stuff. This is before the real dance music days. It was actually kind of, I think, on even the tail end of Dr. Rockets. It was just as the NAC kind of opened.
Yeah.
And my dad took us there, and I think my brother I don't know how old he was, but he was super young. He was like, I think he was 9, maybe even younger. I don't know, 7. But my brother knew how to, he got into modeling and acting and all that stuff back then, and he could dance. And so he was,
your brother?
Yeah. And I don't remember who was playing that night, but one of the people in the band kind of came over and was like, who is this kid? Cause he was just dancing to some tunes that were playing, and they're like, this kid's great. And my dad was all proud of him. And he's like, and so, ended up sending him after high school. He sent him to LA to acting school, youngest to ever get accepted into the Second City Conservatory. Yeah. So, that was a whole other side of my brother. But I mean, again, like you say, we were immersed in all of that artistic music culture, right from the beginning. And we're still in it, and we both love it for sure.
And we took it personally. Like you said, yeah, I think your friend nailed it, that tribalism. Not so sure that exists anymore. Getting back to the Knack, what was the order there? Was it Dr. Rockets first and then the Knack?
Yes.
Okay, so we must have played there when it was Dr. Rockets. I remember we opened for a great band out of Quebec called 3 O'Clock Train. And so we played there a couple times, but that was a show that really sticks out in my memory because they were such really nice people, really good to work with.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then some of the other stuff, opening for the Pursuit of Happiness, I Call the Office, opening for Blue Peter, playing some great shows at the Rivoli, opening for the Pandoras at RPM in Toronto.
Oh, there's a photo of this one.
That's right. That's at RPM.
This one. Yeah.
That's RPM opening for the RPM. And you know what the industry's like. Mm-hmm. So we got a chance to go and open for this band, and we thought it was fantastic. And it was good. I think that's another Call the Office shot.
Oh, you can tell because of the wall in the background, eh?
Yeah.
The telltale
yellow
brick.
Anyway, when we got the gig, and I shouldn't name the name of the promoter because it was a great opportunity for us, but he promised us the world and delivered just the show, which is fine. But it's like, oh yeah, I'll make sure that you'll have catered dinner, and we'll put you guys on the marquee, as opening tonight, then line for the Pandoras, all of that stuff. And of course, we pull in our old Rusty, we used to call it the cancer van, and we looked up on the marquee, and it was from LA, all girls band, Pandoras, and we weren't there. And we go, okay, we know what's going to be happening tonight. But you know what? It was a great show. I got to play in front of, 2,500, 3,000 people. Probably the biggest show that we ever played at. And it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. That's awesome. And so you ended up going, you went to Western, then you went into broadcast at Fanshawe.
That's right.
And then how did you end up going from, did you go from there and then back to Western to CHRW? Or because there was I saw in your bio, there was something about Canada Post too, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So this is
what happened next after Fanshawe? Where did we go from there?
So I graduated from Fanshawe, and I was fortunate in that and I was trained as a radio journalist. A lot of my contemporaries had to take off to northern Manitoba or BC, and I got a job here in London as a stringer for the CBC radio. So I stayed here, and then from there I moved over to the old CKO radio network, which was Canada's first all talk, all news radio network. It was a great concept. Really? It didn't survive, unfortunately, but I worked for them. Then I took a gig at CJCS in Stratford, and I was doing morning news and sports for those guys. And quite honestly, Ryan, I just got tired of commercial radio. And I remember at CJCS, after every newscast, and you're doing 6-7 newscasts a day, right? We would do 6, 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, 9, and then probably we were banking on an 11 and a 12. Nobody does news that frequent anymore anyway, but that's a whole other story, the change in media. And every newscast, you were signing off with CJCS as an example. And now you're up to date and back to more great music of your life on CJCS. And I remember it was like a Friday, and I signed off, and I go, can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we're on After 8.
All right, man. And I just remember saying, fuck, if I have to say that one more time, I will shoot myself. And that's when I decided, okay, I got to get a commercial radio. Got a call from somebody saying, hey, the radio station at Western is looking for a manager. You should apply. And I did, and I got the gig.
Wow.
Got the gig and managed CHRW for 10 years and had some great time there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the beautiful part of it was not only getting to work and meet people like Ron, but all the local bands. So I was able to continue that whole sailing through the whole local scene, and I produced like 3 records, three local London Underground 2, London Underground 3, Jazz and Beyond. Produced a record for the UWO Guitar Society.
Oh, that's cool.
All of that happened because I was there at that time, and because I had some experience as a musician and as a producer, and had the passion to really help these folks. So that's how I got to Western and CHRW. Yeah,
that's cool. And you mentioned producing stuff. I saw in your bio that there was something in there about like 40 records or something you produced. What's that all about?
So over the years, the records that I just mentioned, but I got to work with bands like the Thin Raft and Strawberry UK. Produced records for them. I have to really dig into my memory bank. I produced.
I saw a name on there, Zool's Evil Disco.
Zool's. I did a track for Zool's. What you talking about,
band.
Willis?
I love that band,
Yeah.
Zool's Evil Disco.
So produced a track for them. Got to work with those guys. James Leacock, who now, by the way, is doing he's playing bass in the Tragically Hip tribute act.
Really?
Tribute band. Yeah. So James works at SoCan and still does music. Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
I got to Frank Perry produced his record, and then most recently did a couple records with Kate Channer.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kate's great. That's amazing. When was that?
Kate Channer. You mentioned COVID earlier, and I need to remember if it was pre or post COVID.
Oh, okay, so it's fairly recent.
Oh yeah, fairly. Her
cool.
last two EPs, I worked with her on.
Wow.
Great talent, really talented
Absolutely.
individual, powerful voice, great piano chops. It was a lot of fun to work with.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So did you ever picture yourself getting into the producing side of things?
Not in my younger days. I wanted to perform. I wanted to play. The satisfaction I got was, if you played music, you and I would have been fast friends. And that was a satisfaction that I got, was playing with somebody else and riffing off of each other. And as any musician will tell you, the real energy comes from when you're in the middle of a tune and you're looking at each other and everybody's on top of it and the timing is tight and the performance is great. But I did spend a lot of time in the studio. So I acquired a great deal of knowledge. I wouldn't call myself an exceptional producer. The city is loaded with great talent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But some of the earliest production work that I did goes back to high school when we didn't have even a Fostex 4-track.
Wow.
So we were recording tape to tape.
Oh,
So
I've
we
heard of this.
would set up a couple microphones into a cassette player and record, let's say, bass and drums, and then play that back at excruciatingly loud levels to record vocals and guitar over top of that.
Bob Reed, when he was on, I think you said you saw the episode. He mentioned something that was kind of along those lines, the same kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, Bob is, and him in the Shack. Bob is a London legend, and I'm happy to to call him a friend. I've known him since the late 80s. Really, really talented guy. But to get back to the production, so that was some of the early production. And then we ended up working a little bit with John Aquaviva.
Oh,
who
Johnny.
at that point, well, John was always on the cutting edge.
I'm trying to get John on the show.
Oh,
John, you got to come on, buddy.
We'll arrange that. We'll arrange that. He's now a London Music Hall of Famer. He's got to come back.
Oh, that's awesome.
He's got to come back.
Amazing.
Actually, I was just talking to him a week and a half ago. He was in town. He still comes back often to see his folks for Easter.
Nice.
And he gave me a shout. But he was always on the forefront. So a couple of things about John. I have the Roland 505 drum machine that I bought from him. I still have it today.
Wow.
And
That's legendary.
he bought and had an Akai 16-track recorder that would record on the tape format. It was like a VHS.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That is crazy.
And basically said, yeah, if you want to borrow it, pick it up. So I picked it up, and we ended up being at my house for the entire summer.
Wow.
And we were just recording with that stuff. And then, recording at the original EMAC. I never had the chance to me myself record at Charterhouse, but I've done work here with other bands. But the original EMAC on Richmond, I don't even think they had a 24-track. This would have been 84, 85. 85, somewhere in that era. I don't even think they had a 24-track recorder. They didn't have a 2-inch tape recorder.
Wow.
They were running a 16-track. And we went in there, this is that Thin Line band, and we couldn't afford to record a 16-track. So we recorded 3 songs live off the floor, direct to 2-track on 1/4-inch tape.
Wow. That's wild.
And Joe Vaughn engineered the session.
Cool.
And we still have those recordings.
Wow.
Some of those things still are still alive. A lot of it was lost. So that was my introduction to production work. And then, being able to work with bands like Jamie Conyers and Bass Bag, and oh man, just so much fun.
That's cool.
So much fun.
Circling back to the station for a sec, what was the behind the scenes of that like? Like, I've talked to people who've worked for the station, like I had Brad Gibb on. So I've had a couple people on that have worked in radio, but what was it like to manage a radio station? Like, what's the behind the scenes like with that? The part that people don't hear.
Well, RW was unique in that it's campus radio. So at that point, you could compare that to the good old days of freeform FM.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where within reason, a DJ, an announcer could do and play just about anything they wanted. I was able to take that radio station from a 50-watt radio station I did the license, the amendment to license, and taking it to a 9,000-watt radio station. And we put our stick, the antenna, on top of number 1 London Place, which I
didn't know that.
It's still there today. So
That's
I did
crazy.
that amendment to license, and I made sure we were still under CRTC regs, which required us to play 30% CanCon, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
But because of that interest in the local music community, we increased that even more. So it's like, if you want to do a show, you got to play 40% CanCon. Or how did we break it down? It was like 30% CanCon and 10% has to be local. Some formula.
Sure.
So we were unique in that respect. But we had a tremendous impact in the radio landscape in London. We won. We were nominated for Campus Radio Station of the Year 4 years running. We won it twice.
Oh, wow.
We won some other awards. Again, the good old days of local music. For 2 or 3 years, we did live from the embassy every Friday night.
Oh, that's cool.
Where we had
I wish somebody still did something like that.
Well, and Ryan, because you understand all the technical aspects, right? These were the days when it wasn't just
It was hard to do then.
we had to get Bell Canada to install 16 kilohertz physical lines, 16 kilohertz lines that went from the embassy, from their board, to our studio. That's how we got the signal
That's
there.
crazy.
But we did it, and it was great. And some of the bands that we went live to air with, the Archers of Loaf, No Means No, Early Sloan, on and on and on. And I wish we still had those tapes.
Yeah,
and
no
unfortunately we don't.
Wow.
But campus radio was fantastic, and I look back on it with so many great memories, not just of the music and the accomplishments. There were a few years in there where we were actually registering on local, CHRW was registering on local, what we call BBM measurements, Bureau of Broadcast Measurement, which is unheard of.
Yeah, right.
For a campus radio to be taking a small but significant chunk of the listenership, right?
There's it's interesting, you know, like when I was growing up, when I was younger, my perception of CHRW was that it was a part of the culture of music in London at that time. Like it was some of the stuff that was breaking on CHRW.
When would this have been? What are you talking?
We're talking like, I want to say 92 through 95, 96.
And that would have been my tenure. And that's exact. We started a magazine, the London Music News. We kept that up for 5 years. And so many great writers who are still around today who contributed to that, where our focus was to try to put a local band on the cover every week and to do features on local bands. And of course we would publish our charts, right?
Sure.
But
I don't even think charts are a thing anymore. Like it's like,
are they? Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. It's how it's all changed. Like how you touched on it earlier, about how media's changed. Like, let's talk about that. How has we're talking about radio. How's radio changed in your sort of perception now from what it was then? I mean, we're talking about the heyday, getting all excited, and you know, it's very different now, right?
It's upside down, and I'll be honest with you. I want to be careful here because I still have friends who I love and respect who are working in the medium.
Yeah, of course. Me
but
too.
it's I'll give you a couple examples. Radio used to be the place to break new music. Radio used to be the community unifier, where you went to get your information, but also hear the up-and-coming bands, before it became incredibly formulaic.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, and about 15 years ago, we had, and I won't identify the individual, but we had the president of a radio company basically say, he did say that. He's quoted as saying, radio, it's not our place to break new music.
Oh, wow.
That tells you.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
It should have been further than the truth, but unfortunately, because of the formulas and the formats, we're a rock station, a classic rock station. Or we're a country station, or we're an easy listening station, AOR, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Packaging and boxing things.
Now, hang on. Did that have anything to do with, and this is kind of controversial, but did it have anything to do with the people who own some of those back catalogs wanting their stuff to get pushed on radio more?
A lot of that, there was some of that. There was also a lot of consultants who started to slice and dice the marketplace. And they thought that they knew how to appeal to listeners. Okay. And they really went back to the old...
Sounds less fun.
Yeah, it is less fun. And it's the old jukebox mentality.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Whereas like you take your cachet of 40 songs and you play them over and over and over again. And you're conditioning the audience. And so you get into a chicken or an egg or a catch-22, whatever you want to call it. Are people listening to those songs because you're playing them over and over again, or are you playing them over and over again because people want to hear those songs?
Right.
And you can't. So the whole industry has been taken, is upside down, and you can point to the amalgamation of the industry in the early 90s. Before the early 90s, companies, broadcasters could only own one frequency in a market. So let's say you owned an FM frequency, you could own an FM frequency and an AM frequency, and that was it. Well, these radio stations started lobbying the CRTC, and the CRTC capitulated and allowed them to own multiple frequencies within a market. So now you have one company that comes in and will buy an FM frequency, and it's our classic rock station, and another FM frequency, and it's our country station, and we'll hang on to a AM talker. Mm-hmm. And their rationale was it's going to give us more freedom, more competition. And in actuality, what it did is the reverse. Mm-hmm. It eliminated competition, and it made everything much more homogenous.
Right.
And it relinquished control to a market to two players. Suddenly you have two players in each market that's owning, a market that might have 6 or 7, maybe even 8 frequencies divided up for each. Whereas in the good old days, you'd have 6 different companies owning 6 different stations, right, and operating them. And then enter technology when suddenly not just voice tracking, where shows used to be live. Look at London, Ontario. How many radio stations have a live announcer on after 6 p.m.?
That's from London.
That's London.
Right.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
there's the syndication.
Exactly. Right. You bang on. I mean, do we even have? Again, I want to be careful because there's so many great people that I love and know that are working in the industry. But outside of the Mike Stubbs in the afternoon, who's doing a live talk show in London?
And this is the thing. I think that. Listen, I understand syndication, and I understand everything you've just mentioned. I understand it. I understand it from the business perspective. I can understand it from kind of the executive perspective. Like, I can see how they got there. The troublesome part of it for me, and I talked about it, I think, on the last episode with Mike Denny, and I've talked about it with other people too, is like Brad Gibb, and we talked about it a little bit, but it's become almost impossible for certain local acts to break their music in a local market and get traction and get real traction, because they're up against, these playlists, like you say, right?
Yeah.
And when you had people locally programming those stations, and there was a mandate like you had at CHRW to promote local, like you said, 10% local, then great. But now that's either gone or extremely challenging to the point where you have to know someone or you're toast.
Even if you know someone, you could be toast. So you've got the amalgamation of the industry, okay? Then enter technology. So let's say before technology really started to affect the industry, even if you had one company that is operating 3 FM frequencies in one market, you would have an MD and a PD for each. Now with technology, and they're trying to synergize the industry, you have one in MD who's programming all 3 stations. So you've lost 2 jobs, and now you have one opinion that's affecting 3 stations. You multiply that across the country. You bring on board the attitude that it's not our place to break new music. Local bands, you don't have a hope in hell. Brad Gibb can tell you.
No, he did.
People like Gibb know, and Mark Cameron, and even the good people over at Classic Rock, all those folks who are trying their best. A commercial radio station, I'll just throw out a number, to make the point. Let's say you've got commercial radio station has 200. They're playing 200 songs over the course of an average week. Okay, 200. They're married to a formula. 200 songs in their inventory. Every week, they may free up 2 or 3 positions. So 2 or 3 slots open up. You've got Sony arriving, the Sony rep, not that they arrive anymore, the good old days when they used to actually work the radio stations. But you have Sony, who's got 10 priorities this month. Universal shows up and they've got 10 priorities this month. And the other record company comes and so now you've got 30 songs, 30 artists, not even songs, 30 artists who may have 1 or 2 tracks that they're working each, fighting for 3 positions. On a radio station. What hope in hell does Maggie's Wake or Full Throttle or any of those bands have in being playlisted? You might get Gibb was always good with that when he was at FM 96, and I'm sure he's doing the same at Bell with every once in a while throwing in a local tune. I know he was always very generous with Bob Noxious. Got lots of airplay. And some of the other broadcasters do the same thing, but unless you've got that advocate, and sometimes, Ryan, even having that advocate, or as you said earlier, knowing someone, it's just not possible because the odds are stacked against us.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And I mean, even for Bob to get that relationship going and for it to make sense for the station, part of that too was his community involvement, right? His charity involvement, right? So there's that, like they do the Taz and Jim toy drive,
That's right.
all that kind of stuff. So there's a synergy there with the station. But that's a whole thing outside of what most bands are doing,
Yeah.
I mean, that's all part of it too. I mean, media in general is shifting and changing, and I mean, I was going to touch on it later, but I'll touch on it now. I mean, I was going to ask you about promotion and just promotion across the board, promotion of events, promotion of bands, everybody. But it's a good time to bring this up, is because we're talking about media and how it's shifting and changing. In your perspective, how has promotion changed, and what are some of the things that people can do to promote their event? You have a bunch of events that you're involved in, events, bands, as an artist. Like, what's your perspective on that, on promotion?
I'm not so sure. That's a great question. I'm not so sure I have a clear picture. I know what I think should be the path. I'm not so sure if that's the way it is. Social media, I always thought the internet would be such a great vehicle to put the artist directly in touch with the consumer and to start that dialogue. Maybe it's happened, maybe it's not. I'm not so sure. We're just being bombarded by so many messages coming from so many different directions. Things are changing so quickly. I don't know if there's a magic bullet for how best to tell people, hey, this exists. You should be excited about it. This is why. and this is where to jump on board. Creating that tribe. I'm so glad you mentioned that analogy, because I will not forget that moving forward. But it's so relevant to how do you create that tribe. I'm just not so sure, and I don't know if there's any way around just making the relationships, leveraging the relationships, and getting out and working. Maybe it's no surprise that now in the record business industry, the only way an artist can make money is to play live.
Yeah.
With a lack of physical media, you're not going to make it in album sales or CD sales. You're certainly not going to do it. I had this discussion, and I may ruffle some feathers, but with a friend of mine about a year and a half ago, who was just championing Spotify. It's so great and it's so awesome. And I said to him, I remember saying to him, and I won't mention who it was, saying, Spotify is not your friend. There was a time where if you cut a record and you sold a record, you may have been making $1 off of every unit, maybe even more. You sold 1 million records, you're a millionaire. What do you get if you have 1 million streams?
Yeah. A couple $100.
Exactly. Right. So Spotify's not your friend.
Yeah.
They pretend to be your friend,
Yeah.
but they may be the most consequential music distribution service on the planet right now. So I don't know. You know better than me. You're running a business. You need to tell people about your products, your services, your location. So maybe I should be asking you that question.
Sure.
How do you do it?
Well, you got to wear all the hats, and I defer to Jordan McDonald, who was just in here from Texas King. I don't think there's any substitution for this. You already hit the nail on the head. There's no substitution for making a personal connection with people.
Yeah.
And he said that. He's like, I'll go out and I'll like physically run tickets to people's houses. Like he physically, if he's doing a show in town at Music Hall, like he does the thing at the Christmas time, he'll physically go and sell tickets to people and like meet up with them. If somebody wants to buy merch, he'll meet up with them. He'll, post a thing. Hey, I'm going to be here if you guys want to buy any albums or any t-shirts or whatever. And, so they're hustling, and from my standpoint with my business, obviously I'm a national company that is selling musical instruments to musicians and people all over the country. So that's the challenge all in of its own.
Yeah.
Being in one location in London, Ontario, and trying to market myself to the whole country is tough because, obviously you've grown up knowing my dad and knowing me and knowing the passion and stuff that we put into the business and all that. And the people from town that know us know that too. But translating that into something that is digestible, that people get to know you on a personal level and can form a relationship with you can be very challenging because obviously everybody's scrolling, everybody sees ads. Nobody wants to see ads. That's a thing of the past. Yeah. So it has to be this. It has to be, personable. I mean, you even use an extreme example like Deadmau5. He put videos up of his cats and stuff, like, the most random stuff, but people got to know who he was
and gravitated
as a human being, and people latched onto that, right? Yeah. So I think that there's no substitution for personal connection, and playing is part of that, right? I mean, that was what a couple of the people I interviewed said. Play as much as you possibly can. If you're an artist, you need to play for anyone that will watch, anyone that will listen. Because that's your business card is playing right live. And that is why you still see people making their money playing live for sure. But I think if we're talking about electronic or any type of means of promotion, the internet can be a great vehicle, but you have to know what you're doing in terms of your messaging. It's very important. It's hard for artists, I would say, especially. It's easier for business people because we've kind of grown up cutting our teeth, understanding how it works. Some of us have even gone to school for it, but artists is tough because they're artists and they're into the art,
Yeah.
and they're not always the greatest business people. So my thing that I would say to them is find people who believe in what you're doing and build a team.
Let me ask you about your business though, because you're a young businessman, comes from a family with a history of business. Now, with the way the world has changed, is there a duality where you need to let people know about your store in this region, and you may have a bit of an advantage in that people know you and know the store and know the family, and some people I'm sure would say, well, I'd rather go there than to a chain. But then the duality is you also have to have an online presence. Does the online shopping, does that occupy a big space for you guys?
Of course it does. Absolutely. I mean, I would say in America, you had online sales in the musical instrument world has been a thing for a while. In Canada, it's been a thing, but it's not been as big of a thing until COVID. Once COVID hit, I mean, everyone started buying everything online because that's just was the way to go. And so now, since then, I mean, we pivoted in 2019. Our name was PA Shop, and then we changed to Music City Canada. And we did that in November, the Black Friday weekend of 2019, like literally 3 months before the first lockdown. We changed our brand, our name, our website, everything.
And I love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But that was a challenge all in of its own, because we went national 3 or 4 months before that all happened. So blessing and a curse, right? Blessing in a sense that everybody was at home going, where can I buy musical instrument gear? But you're brand new, so your SEO isn't necessarily there, and lots of challenges. So new website, new challenges. So, but I think the web side of it, we're working towards right now. We're working towards trying to make that experience as close to the in-store experience as possible. We're currently literally right now coding things and hiring staff and putting things into place that I'm consciously trying to make that effort, because I feel like I would love to for everyone in Canada nationwide to have the same feeling and the same personal connection and realize the passion that we have for this, just like they do. Across the country.
Yeah.
And I think that, shows like this help. But I want that for my whole staff. I want people to realize who Derek is and how cool Derek is to chat with. I have people that come up in the drum department, chat with Derek for like 2 hours. Like it's like, hey, it's like the show Cheers, where people are coming in just to hang out,
They know your name.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so that's for us, that's what it's all about. We're in this for the passion and the love. I mean, we just are.
But what's the proportion, if I can ask you? Like, what are you doing, like in-store, location, sales versus online? Is it 50-50? What would it be?
I mean, in terms of...
you don't have to disclose revenue.
No.
What are the transactions?
Overall, I would say that we're looking at probably 60-40 to 70-30, depending on the quarter.
Okay.
So in Q4, obviously, Christmas time, things are really busy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my wife, I love her, but she does all her Christmas shopping on the internet.
She does.
And she's in her 30s, right? So like, you can imagine people even younger than that's all they're looking at, really, so they're not necessarily going to the shopping mall, or they're not going to the big box stores, right? So Q4 is 70-30.
So you're saying 70, when you say
70% online.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's great though, because that gives you the opportunity. Your footprint is national, or maybe even international.
It is international in some cases. Yeah. And national for sure. And from our standpoint, we take a lot of care, especially with some of the pieces, guitars especially, because they're moving, breathing, organic instruments. So, they're showing up here from some country far, far away, and that's a very different climate, and the frets are sharp. So one of the things to note about us that's maybe different from some other people is we open every guitar, not just the guitars that are, $400 and up. We open every guitar, even if it's $150 whatever.
Like my first guitar.
Sure. All of those entry-level 3/4 juniors, we open every single one. And we ship 10 to 20 of those a day.
Wow.
So we have 3 full-time guitar techs and a full-time Serbian luthier, 3rd-generation Serbian luthier, Jovan. We have a I had to build a bigger shop for these guys when we started to pick up doing national guitar sales, because I refuse to have someone open a guitar and have a bad experience. And I don't think the guitar companies want people to have a bad experience. They make good guitars.
Yeah.
But because of the climate difference, even from California to here, and it takes a while to get here, and God forbid it's wintertime, right? I mean, it's hot, cold, because it's going in and out of trucks and warehouses. And so it gets here and it needs a little bit, especially if this is your first or second guitar. We don't want your first experience or that experience to be negative. So it's important for us.
Is that is that part of the philosophy you were talking about earlier, where you're trying to make the online experience as close to the in-store experience as possible?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's we have Bungie who works here, and Bungie's been the guitar tech for Kevin from the Bare Naked Ladies for close to 15, 16 years. He was Lou Reed's tech. He was Jeff Healy's tech. I got Jeff Healy's wah pedal right here. How cool is it that some person in Langley, BC, who ordered this Fender Strat or it doesn't matter what, name any guitar, but they've just had their guitar set up by the Bare Naked Ladies guitar tech.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing. And you're not paying extra for that. That's just the thing that we do, because we want to make sure that when you open that guitar, it's awesome, just like as if it would be if it was on stage with them.
Can I quickly riff with that? Because you mentioned Bungie and the Bare Naked Ladies. Shout out to Rob Meningoni from London, Ontario, who was Tyler Stewart's drum tech in that band for many, many years. And was the percussionist for The Waiting in London, Ontario. And we got to play with them many times. Fantastic individual. So if you were able to get him over here, you'd have 2/5 of the Bare Naked Ladies techs.
So in 20 now that you mention it, I give credit where credit's due. So in 2018, Boris and Bungie came to me and said, "Hey, you know what? We should think about opening up a drum side." And I'm like, "Okay, well, who do you think would be good for that?" And Bungie's like, "Well, Rob Menegoni's looking for a gig." And in 2018, Rob Menegoni.
So he was here.
Rob Menegoni, Rob LaRose, and Mercedes Lander and me opened up what at the time was called London Percussion.
I remember that now. Yes. Okay.
And we changed the name when we introduced Music City to Music City Drums. And it's now run by Derek Babinin, who worked for years in Toronto at Just Drums and Drummers Hangout. Menegoni was here and helped me start it all up, and was a great influence on all of what we did to get it going. And so credit to Rob, and he's at Western now.
He's at Western, a heck of a super nice guy. And we recorded this would have been 85, 86. And we recorded a album cut then it was Oyart. And the day I went into the studio to record the drums, I wasn't happy with my snare, and called Rob up, and he lent me his very nice snare that he had, and that's what I used to record.
That's so cool. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 degrees of separation here in London, Ontario.
I'm going to say it's London, Ontario, no degrees of separation. If you've been around, you've been around.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Jared, do you mind scrolling up a little bit for me there? Awesome. Keep going. So let's fast forward to today. So, because we talked a lot about the past.
So you are, Ryan, let's get this clear. You are the David Frost of Southwestern Ontario.
Well, I thank you. Thank
You're
you.
the host, the host with the most. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a compliment. Boys and Girls Club. So I still remember going to your office at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
How did you get started at the Boys and Girls Club?
I am a big believer in serendipity and that things happen for a reason. So after I left CHRW, I went to work at CTV. I worked at CTV for a number of years, producing the 6 o'clock news. Left that, and I went to work for the federal government. So I did communications. I was the Ontario communications manager for Canada Post.
Ontario?
Federal, yeah.
Really?
For Canada Post.
Wow.
And I handled a couple really hot portfolios. We won't get into that, but one of them was elimination of mail delivery to the door.
Oh, boy.
Which went over like a lead balloon.
Yeah. Yep.
So I took an early retirement. This would have been in 2018, something like that. I took an early retirement. And my plan, Ryan, was to, you know what, I'll get back to my roots, do some music stuff. I continue to do work with the city, whether it's New Year's Eve or the Arts Council, some of the stuff they're doing.
Sure.
And you know, that's how I will handle the rest of my life. And then I got a call from the Boys and Girls Club. One of the senior managers there called me and said, "We're looking to get into some sort of music programming at the club." And we talked to a few people, and they suggested we contact you. So I went in, and I was first of all, honored that they reached out to me, and I agreed to go and meet with them. We had a discussion, and I tried to get into their mindset. What is it that you want to accomplish? And well, we'd like to have like a little studio here. We could have some sing songs with the kids and do that and this. And I thought about it, and I looked at it, and went back to him. And I said, "It's not going to work." I said, to do a little recording studio in this day and age, people have recording studios on their phones, on their laptops, GarageBand and et cetera, et cetera. Plus, anybody of note, whether you're a local musician, they're going to want to go and record at Charterhouse or, at another studio. But I said I put some thought into this, and I think what we can do is stitch together all the digital arts. So music production, videography, photography.
I didn't realize you had that in there too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. So music production, videography, photography, coding. We're teaching computer coding, Python, HTML,
I didn't know that.
CSS, and graphic design. We're teaching kids how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign.
Crazy.
And so I came up with a concept and went back to them, and they said, "This is great. Do you think you could make this work?" And I said, "Well, let's talk about it. Let's move forward." And now 5 years later, we are a service provider for both the Catholic School Board and the Thames Valley School Board. Ryan, last school year, we graduated in excess of 110 high school students.
What?
Getting 2 high school credits in one of those 4 disciplines.
Wow.
This semester, I have 58 kids coming in every day, 58 students coming in every day, Monday through Friday, 6 cohorts, 4 streams. So in the morning, we'll do
That's wild.
graphic design and coding.
No, I'm saying it's wild because I live in this town and I didn't know this was this big of a thing.
It's only been 4 or 5 years,
Wow.
right? And remember, we were trying to skate COVID, like you, trying to figure out how you're going to pivot. And,
the pivot.
And you were smart to use that time and that experience to expand your online business, to develop your online business. We use that time because we were just starting to learn how to create knowledge transfer online. how to teach people graphic design virtually, how to teach people coding virtually.
So
Now,
is it still virtual now?
no, but we can. So, as an example, our morning graphic design, we have 19 students who come in person, 4 of them who log in virtually, because they're at schools in West Elgin, 45 minutes out of London. They want to do this type of co-op. They have no one in their location, and the discipline lends to online learning. Audio engineering we can't do.
Yeah, right.
Videography, photography, we can't do by distance, because you've got to handle a camera. I mean, look at your folks here in this studio. They're they're playing with a switcher and they're actually editing. Graphic design though and coding transfers fairly well. I'd say very well to distance learning. So that's our day. 58 kids this semester, 58 students from 17 different high schools.
Unbelievable.
6 cohorts, 4 streams, Monday through Friday.
Wow. That's
who knew?
That's incredible. And you're managing all that.
I'm managing it, and I'm having the time of my life. I never saw myself. This is the beauty of it, and I have to say I'm fortunate. I never saw myself being in a place in life where I'm working with students as an educator. But more importantly, I'm able to stitch together the skill sets that I've developed throughout my career. Music, radio, television, right? Yeah. So I'm weak in graphic design and computer coding, but I don't have to do all the teaching. I'm able to bring in staffers who take care of that, and we've built a team. We're a team of 5, and we're doing very, very well. And I think we're having impact.
That's got to be super rewarding, man. It's got to be.
It's cool. It's a lot of fun, and when the students come to you and they say thanks, that was a great experience, or hey man, I really felt good about this, makes you feel pretty good.
Yeah,
right?
That's so cool. Interesting to see where they all go too, right? Like you never know. That's the thing.
You don't know, and we've entered into I don't know. Maybe life has always been there's always been a degree of uncertainty, but look what the community colleges have done throughout the province. Fanshawe College just axed its radio program.
I was going to bring this up, but let's talk. Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's do it. I was going to bring it up later, but let's talk about it now.
What's next?
You were the one that told me. You called me the other day, and I'm like, I was in shock. So they axed the radio program. There was another one too, wasn't there?
45.
Wow.
45 programs. But some of them in like radio and marketing. I mean, I don't want to mislead anybody. I didn't memorize the list.
I think there's the food side of it. I think got a couple cut too, right?
Some of them, yeah. So what's going to happen? That makes us more relevant. So Digital Creative Arts Center, we need to do more stuff with Music City Canada. We need to provide these opportunities for kids, for students to train in these technologies. But again, nobody knows where it's going to end up. Well, you tell me. You're younger and more astute than I am. What impact is AI going to have?
I mean, it's already having a massive impact. Anyone who uses Google, which is every person on the planet,
right?
It's already having an impact in a sense that when you Google something, there's an AI description of what you're looking for at the top of Google now, and most people are reading that as fact, right? But the AI is not necessarily fully there yet. So is it 100% or is it 90% or is it 85% or is it completely subjective? We don't know, right? So, I mean, it's already having an effect on every single human being on the planet. They just don't realize it yet. And it will continue to evolve and have more and more of an effect. I think that, I think it's a tool in a toolbox until a point. And as long as we keep it in the toolbox, then we're good. But, there's a lot of people in the world talking about how it can become more than just a tool. And if that's the case, I think we're in trouble. in many ways. So, Terminator was not just a fictitious thing, I mean, there becomes a tipping point where, and this isn't just about AI. There's a tipping point where I think the tools of technology can overtake your life, right? Can replace your life. Like there's all kinds of things that people are talking about, even the adult film industry and AI. Like the things that are being talked about there are absolutely mind blowing, right?
Wow.
And so there's so much that is to come. I mean, I think that technology is amazing. I am in a technology business. The people who buy from me are all using technology. I mean, at one point it was, look at what happened with a band like Milli Vanilli using tracks. And now using tracks is every single band pretty much.
Exactly.
Right? I think that technology is going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to be a part of our lives, but it needs to remain a part of our lives. And I think that's up to every single person out there to be responsible for their life and choosing how much of that technology is involved in their life. If it overtakes your life, it's an addiction, just like anything else.
I like the way you phrase that. It's a tool in the toolbox until it's not.
Yeah.
That's very astute. I don't know. I mean, I'm fearful for the impact it's going to have. Obviously, I'm being selfish on the music business itself, or the music industry, or the artists. Film companies, if they can go and create a sound score using AI, they're going to probably choose that rather than hiring a local musician or a noted musician, because you don't have to worry about copyrights, you don't have to worry about contracts, you don't have to worry about residuals. Here's your score, you own it, done.
It's going to change the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one less opportunity for musicians. Suddenly writing jingles for commercials or writing movie soundtracks may no longer be there, right? I'm also fearful. I've always been interested in the human condition, and as an English student, books that I've gravitated to, movies that are always movies and books, stories about we as human beings, the human condition, right? So are we entering the age where technology, AI, is going to write songs about love lost that was never lost, about relationships that never went bad, about being dissed and disrespected?
It's already happening.
Yeah, it's already happening.
It's already happening. You can
tell me about it.
You can already ask it to write you a song that sounds like a certain artist, and it will, and it sounds like that artist. And like that artist is writing it, like I was driving this morning with my daughter and I turned on Sirius XM The Pulse, and there was a new Mumford & Sons song that was playing that I hadn't heard before, and it sounded like Mumford & Sons.
And it wasn't.
It was.
Oh, okay.
But my point is that the technology is there now that you Mario could say, hey, make me a song that sounds like Mumford & Sons, and they have a distinct sound, is my point.
Yeah.
It will create a song that sounds like it could be written by Mumford & Sons.
That scares me. See, that scares me on so many different levels, because it's no longer a human communication. Music is a communication form.
Yes.
I know it sounds tired, and it's an old adage that music is the universal language, but it is.
It is.
It is. And it's a way that we can communicate. We communicate our passions for something. We can communicate our disdain for something. We communicate how happy we are, how sad we are, how confused we are. That outlet now, you're telling me, is being taken over by AI.
I'll give you one thing though. So shout out to my friend Eddie Gordon, who was on episode 5.
Okay.
I was trying to remember them all. Eddie did a talk for me at the CDJ show that I did, a music conference for DJs and dance music producers in Toronto. And he did a talk in 2012. and it was a panel discussion, a bunch of people up there, Stonebridge, DJ Friend, and a bunch of people. And he talks about how the vibration of your mother's voice is the first thing you hear as a human being, even in the womb. Yeah. And to take it one step further than Eddie took it that day, is that we are all technically vibrating energy in water. And the reality is that if you have AI create you say it's communication. I say it's a transfer of energy. So you're taking your energy and you're taking it and you're transferring it and or even sharing it within the world. If you have AI create the energy, then it's not your energy. It's not the same, right? So, and I think that if we want to get right in the weeds about the human condition, I think that what people will find is if you don't have a way of connecting and putting out that energy and getting energy back, right? If you start to lack that connection, it will affect you very negatively. And so I think that as part of being human, even though people will experiment with it as a technology, I think at some point, if you use it too much and you don't have enough of that human energetic connection, I think it will become an issue and people will need it again. Hence why the minute the pandemic was over, everybody took the masks off and went to concerts. I mean, there was so many tours that were happening that they didn't have enough technicians. Bungie, because he was on a retainer with the Bare Naked Ladies, had to go out with the ladies. But Bungie had like 6 offers because he was doing guitars for Tom Cochrane, doing guitars for a bunch of different bands. And they're like, not everybody can have Bungie all at the same time.
Right.
But there's at the end of the day, we needed that connection again.
Do you see it kind of like that? Then are you equating? Is your example similarly to people going back to vinyl? Maybe wanting that visceral connection with
absolutely
vinyl and grooves and that tactile experience. Is that what you're saying?
It 100%. And that's why, in my opinion, just my opinion, that's why vinyl is still such a huge thing, because the energy that went into that piece of vinyl, I mean, I know it even just from the technical side, like the amount of bass and the size of the wave coming out of a piece of vinyl does not match that of a CD or an MP3, right? It's just not. Those it's compressed compared to that. I mean, all you have to do is get a really decent sound system and A/B them. It's very apparent very quickly because bass is the biggest frequency wave. Right. So that's where you can tell it the most, right? I mean, you can, as long as you have good in, you can usually get good out on the mids and highs, right? Yeah. I mean, the Beatles, great example of that. Back in the day, there was no bass, right? Back in those days, there was you're lucky to be able to just mic the vocals, right? So, I mean, but at the end of the day, I think that part of the longevity of vinyl is the sound, and the sound is the energy that went into that recording, right? I mean, there's people that still will use tape to this day, real tape. They'll record on real tape and then they digitize it, but they'll record with analog pre's, right? Old
to try to capture the energy.
That same full energetic sound. Yes. And that's a thing. I mean, you're a drummer. Yeah. How guys are spending tens of thousands of dollars on drums. Well, yeah, someone from the outside looking in would go, it's just a piece of wood with a skin on it. Yeah. No, man, it's not. Like, it's the same with guitars. Like, there's so much energy that goes into a custom guitar or an incredibly tuned, like look at what you said about Rob Menegoni, making your snare drum sound amazing. Yeah. That's his energy going into that instrument. That instrument didn't sound good before he touched it. And then all of a sudden he touched it and it was awesome. Right. And it's not just, he knows how to tune a drum. No, it's everything in his life that got him to that point. He can walk up and he knows that drum should sound like this based on what you want. And that can't be done by AI.
So let me ask you, because you are much more technologically adept than I am. Pro Tools. Let me throw this out at you.
Sure.
Steve Lukather. You familiar?
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Luke, who's been on probably 4,000 recordings. Anyway, he was quoted once as saying, now there's just to be transparent, there's some confusion whether he was the one who said this or he was quoting someone else. It doesn't matter. What they were saying was, before there were Pro Tools, there were pros. How does that make you feel?
It's a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah, but now suddenly we're making people who are marginally good vocalists sound good.
Sure.
We're taking drummers who are just slowly oscillating faster and slower,
So
be incredibly accurate.
I'm going to give you I'll give you a story with people you know and people in the way you'll understand. I mentioned earlier that Mercedes helped me start London Percussion. She was one of the first staff members here. I was not around during the recordings of the first Kitty album, but I was told by someone that the girls were very young at the time, and so they didn't obviously know how to play their instruments the way they do now. And I can experience how they play it now because they came here last year and did a bunch of rehearsals in my studio downstairs, and wow.
To get ready for their tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were headlining massive metal festivals in Germany and Mexico for 30 to 50,000 people. Now, that being said, first album, couldn't really play their instruments that well. Dan Broadbeck recording it here at DB Studios, and Pro Tools was involved, right? Session players were involved. I believe. Again, I wasn't there. This is secondhand, mind you. But what I was told is that those girls ended up having a killer album. They went out on the road and they learned how to play. They cut their teeth the real way, like we talked about. Get out there and play.
Yeah.
And they did. And their dad supported them and a bunch of people supported them. And they built an absolutely incredible career all over the world for millions and millions and millions of people playing their music and sharing that. I think that if you are going to use Pro Tools as a tool and then it remains that way, but you learn the craft, right? Like you put in the time and you earn it, then I think it's all good. If
So you're saying it's kind of like training wheels?
I think that it's a way to help you, because my dad always said this. He said, Ryan, you have a certain window of time, right? And if you don't do something within that window of time, it's over.
Yeah.
So I think that Pro Tools, if used correctly, can just shorten the window of time it takes to help get some decent product out there. But that's no substitute for learning your instrument, learning how to songwrite, understanding the scene, putting the work in. I mean, again, I go back to Jordan, what Jordan said on the episode that he did from Texas King about he's still, even now, after going on a U.S. headline tour with Ian Thornley and Big Wreck, he's still going out and selling tickets to shows in London, Ontario to people by hand. He's putting in the work, no matter what that means, right? It's different for everybody depending on what part of their journey they're in. But I would say that to answer you simply, Pro Tools is a great tool to use for what you may need it for, but it's not a substitute for learning how to perform your music your way to your fans. That has to be a thing. And you can't just Pro Tools your way, or even for that matter, Melodyne, which is another software out there for auto-tuning. You can't Melodyne your way out of it, right? I mean, not everybody can be T-Pain and have your sound be a Melodyne reverb effect. I mean, you actually do have to be able to sing in tune. And so that's something that in the beginning, I think now those tools are socially acceptable to be used. But at some point, your fans are going to show up. And if you can't sing or you can't play, it's going to be a problem.
Or you don't sound like it, Are you a fan of Rick Beato? You familiar with
Rick Beato, absolutely.
Yeah, Beato, okay.
100%.
So episode that I watched recently, and they were he was talking a little bit about Pro Tools. They didn't get into it too much, but what was interesting was they did a demonstration. So they took Led Zeppelin's "Fool in the Rain," the John Bonham drum beat, and here's John isolated Bonham drum beat as it was recorded.
Yep.
And it sounds like the drum beat, right?
Yep.
Here is that same pattern that is now Pro Toolsed. So every shot is quantized, everything, and it sounded like a mess.
Of course. Yeah. So my comment to that is, when I started learning production back in the day with my cousin in Toronto, we had a studio there, and we started doing dance music production. We would quantize things, and what we figured out really, really quickly is that in dance music, one of your best friends is a thing called swing. There's a function called swing, and all it's doing is taking your 4/4 quantized beat and putting variation in it.
So putting it ahead or behind the beat, and that's the swing. Okay, got it.
But it's not even a consistent variation. It's just variation, right? So it's trying to help it seem more as if it was played live, right?
Natural, yeah.
Yeah, because the reality is that people don't dance like this, right? People groove. People are moving with the music. It's transfer of energy.
Yeah.
So, that's why some certain genres, and I mean many genres, but the one that obviously comes to mind, being that we're in London, Ontario with the classic Sunfest, is Latin music, right? Latin music has a certain style, especially percussiveness. There's certain percussion styles that are different. The Cuban percussion is different than the Argentinian percussion, is different than the Brazilian percussion, right? And that's all played by hand, and there's no quantizing, and you're moving to that, right? And the bass player's got to try and play in the pocket to that, right? But when that comes together for real, and the players are good, it's magical.
Yeah, it's interesting. So who knows where technology will take us, will lead us. But I like what you said about it's a tool in the toolbox until it's not.
Till it's not. And if it's not, I mean, you got to be careful, because, now is it really your art?
That's what concerns me. That like
it is, and there's going to be a ton of people that comment going, yes, of course it is, but it is, and that's fine. But I think that if I ask people all the time, who are some of the people that inspire you? I ask that, and I'll ask you obviously too, who are some of the people that inspire you? But I mean, I ask people that, and no word of a lie, a bunch of the people that you mentioned in the beginning, artists, Beatles, right, Frank Zappa, those come up time and time again, right? And some of the most famous people in the world. I was at we were at the PRS, hanging up behind you there, the PRS 40th anniversary. Shout out to the guys from PRS. What an incredible night that was. Jared was there with me. We were at the Hard Rock in LA and in Anaheim, and it was unbelievable. But John Mayer was there. And, John Mayer is quoted as, having all kinds of influences, right? And so everybody's got influences that are, and to me, that's those influences are what shape you as an artist, not the Pro Tools, not any of that, right? So to me, that's what's important, is finding out what influences you as an artist, what moves you, and then going from and taking it from there, and letting it be an influence on you, and creating your own music, your own craft out of that. Right. I mean, that's what we're experiencing. There's a stat somewhere that says that you can change what people are used to by 15%. Any more than 15%, and you lose a large portion of people.
Wow.
Yes. So that's about the stat. I mean, don't quote me on that, but that's what I've heard, is that you can take something. And so if you look right now, I've been doing this because I've just got out a DJ controller, and I started DJing it a little bit again. And I downloaded a bunch of music off my friend. Shout out to Nick from Zip DJ, episode 1. I downloaded a bunch of music from Zip DJ. And the very first thing I noticed, And I'm old school, so I went to the chart. Nick's got some killer charts on ZipDJ. I went to the chart and I started downloading from the chart. And one of the things I noticed was that this is not an exaggeration either. I wish it was. 80+% of the songs I was downloading were remixes. They were remixes of not only, we're talking about remixes of Rick Astley, remixes of
who's a great drummer, by the way.
Yes, but remixes of Duran Duran, remixes of all bands, all styles. Lionel Richie, everything was on there. But like modern style remixes, dance club remixes of songs that sounded very good, mind you, like stuff that I would absolutely play. Because there's stuff that I wouldn't play back in the day. I used to get dance remixes of some songs back in the day in the record pools that I would never play. Yeah. But this stuff was all primo.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an interesting time right now in music, I would say.
Now, you said earlier that you were very much gravitating towards a lot of the British, German, the Euro beats, the Euro dance music. Is that still something that you go to? Because I'm assuming, Ryan, that the DJ is still in you.
Yes, I absolutely adore music from trance to hard house to all those genres. As I've gotten older, one of the things that I've really come into my own on is I really like sharing energy and movement. And I find that one of the genres best to do that in dance music is house music. So I've really gravitated towards my back in the day, one of my favorite genres was disco house, is what we used to call it in the 90s.
Give me
90s.
an example. What would that be?
Well, disco house is basically a disco type beat. Okay. And real slap bass kind of style playing, right? With some
Nile Rodgers type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. With some type of recognizable voice or lyric, right? Could be an old lyric from the 70s or 80s, whatever, over top, mixed in, chopped up, mixed in, that kind of thing. And they'd call that disco house. And it's just something that's funky. It's recognizable. It makes people want to sort of groove to it. Even if you're not a dancer, you're sitting at a table in a martini lounge, you're grooving to it, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe that I've been going towards lately. As I get older, because I do see myself, if I were to start playing again as a DJ, that's the kind of stuff I would probably play.
Do you produce a lot of your own music? Or
I did for many, many years. Yeah, I produced music with my cousin Matt. We had a duo, and we were producing dance music and stuff like that. And it was fun. I had a great time doing it. But now I have a couple of kids, and that changes things. So
it sure does. And we were talking about my journey earlier. So in the middle 90s, when we started having kids, after a couple of years, I had to put my music room became the playroom. Mm-hmm. So our room the room that I had in the basement, I had all my drum paraphernalia, my drums and suddenly I had to pack it up one day so that our son had a playroom downstairs, and it was between the two kids. It disappeared for 10 years, for a decade.
My wife's going to watch this episode and she's going to go, see, it's not just you.
It's not just, no, it's not. And I'll bet you that. Now, fortunately, there was a while there. I was good friends with, God rest his soul, Tyson Holler at the embassy.
Yeah.
And when I told him that, hey, man, I got to shut down my music room at home so Benjamin can have a playroom.
Where are you going to put it?
And he said, "Hey man, just come on up, and you can have a room at the embassy." And
oh wow!
And I had a room there for like nearly 3 years.
Cool.
And he was always so generous, so nice.
That's cool.
Don't worry about paying. Yeah, just help me out around here sometimes.
I can't drive down Dundas Street in that area and not think about the embassy every single time I do.
Me too.
Yeah. And that's the energy, man, I'm talking about. What happened in that building. I mean, you talked about it earlier with running a line from there to the station.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I had no idea that was even happening. But I mean, to me, that's not surprising. That place was absolutely legendary. And when I was a little kid, Blue Bones used to play there. And I used to see.
That's when I met Gordy. Would have been 89, 90.
Yep.
91.
And I used to go downtown. I thought downtown was like the coolest thing at the time. And I used to go downtown and they'd have these colored posters up downtown, Blue Bones at the Embassy, you know.
Yeah.
And at that time, I didn't realize it was Boris and Gordon, those guys. I had no idea who Blue Bones was, right? And then Boris started working here with me and Jim Shaw. We were building stage decks, and
Jimmy Shaw,
speaker cabinets, and I was working with Boris. And then I found out Boris was in Blue Bones, and I'm like, oh wow, this is awesome! This is so cool. You know, I had no idea. And but they'd go out and gig, and then Boris would show up Monday morning and with his t-shirt on and his jeans, and okay, so what are we building today? You know, it was such a cool experience. And then to open up London Guitars with him. And you know,
does he still works?
He's retired now.
Oh, okay.
Just this past fall. But you know, to build that with him after all those years was fun. Was a great time. And you know, he's missed every day. Trust me.
I can imagine his that Blue Bones debut record was killer. It was a great record. And then he went on to do stuff with Boris's Back, right?
Yeah.
That was his project.
Yeah, he did. There was a bunch of stuff. He did. There was another band called Mind War Symphony. He had a bunch of projects that happened. I think Stan was actually in Mind War Symphony too, if I'm not mistaken, who works here. But yeah, there was a bunch of stuff that happened back then. But those were pretty awesome times.
They were
in the rock world, especially.
And you mentioned earlier about venues. So,
oh yeah, let's get into venues.
Well, you cannot discount the influence that Helen Haller had on the local music scene. She was the one who took a chance in the early days of the Embassy to say, you know what, we're going to start programming local music. And gave local. You could do a poll, go around. You know, obviously not the younger age, but anyone who was playing in a band in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and ask them where was the first place you played, and I'm going to say probably 80% of them will say the Embassy.
Yeah.
If not the Cultural House, the Whippet Lounge. If not the Whippet Lounge, the main room at the Embassy. And it was all Helen. And there were some others who you can't discount the work that Scott Bentley did. You know, first at Call the Office, then at his own place, the Electric Banana, Big Bob's that he managed for a while, and there's the other place I can't remember that was on upstairs. We played there a number of times on Talbot Street. So many great venues in the city. Where are they?
So here's my question to you: is you know, what happened?
I think it's a confluence of a bunch of things. It really is. I like what you said earlier, or I agree with what you said earlier about the impact that COVID had, but things were changing even before then, and I don't know if it's a confluence of the change in media, meaning radio, the change in technology, switching from CD to streams. Just the change in the relationship between the artist and their audience, not to mention the fact that we are now faced with a whole generation, maybe even two, but let's say one generation that does not value music the way we do.
This is true.
You talk to Ron. Probably some of the biggest, before Ron started doing humongous shows, and he's always done big shows, but probably some of the biggest shows he ever did were the concerts on the Hill during orientation week at Western.
Yeah.
Where they were putting in big stage setups and huge bands coming through. big bands, because of an organization called COCA, Association of Campus, Canadian Organization of Campus Activities. And they would buy tours en masse and route bands across the country, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If the PA shop had to, I'm guessing, so you can slap me around if I'm wrong. If the PA shop had to rely on gigs on campus,
Oh gosh,
like you used to in the good old days,
no,
right? Exactly.
no. I mean, Coca came here in '97. I did Coca '97. I was part of the production team, and I'll never forget this. I was doing lights with Andy. The two of us were doing lights for the main ballroom at the Hilton. And I remember the minute Wide Mouth Mason came on stage, and I was like, I got goosebumps. I was like, wow. And everybody in the room was like, wow. And I mean, bear in mind, I had worked with Spirit of the West. I had worked with a bunch of these bands that gave you the wow factor, right? But we were like, wow, these guys are really good. And sure enough, like I wouldn't say single-handedly, but I would say that for sure in the university community, that literally launched their career.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
In the university community and the that age group of culture in Canada.
100%.
For sure.
100%. First time I ever saw Tegan and Sarah on campus.
Yeah.
I could band after. First time I ever saw The Odds on campus. First time I ever saw.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah. Bare Naked Ladies. I got to introduce them at Western when they opened for the Tragically Hip, who were touring on the the release of Road Apples.
That's insane.
Those shows aren't happening on campus anymore. Those students, those kids, you nailed it earlier. It was my record collection. They don't have a collection anymore. Their collection is just a bunch of streamed songs that they rent. So they're not, and I know I'm probably sounding really old right now, but there's some truth to it.
No, there is. You know what? You were just going to say it again, and I'm going to say it. So we talk about valuing music, and I think that you can take it a step further. I think that for the people out there, because I think there's a lot of young people today that do find value in music. There's a lot that don't, but there's some that do. I think that the ones that find value in not only music, but the messages that the artists are putting out there, the art itself, right? I mean, if you can really connect with that, then you've got a chance to experience something really great still. And now I think that the venue thing, in my opinion, to go back to that for a second, is a lot of factors. And we could sit here all night and talk about that. But if I had to pinpoint a couple, one is that we're fighting for people's attention.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
because we're not just, I mean, case in point, you yourself said you can't code, but you're teaching coding because there's a value in that. So here's a question, right? You know, how many people out there who aren't of our, let's even say, cultures from outside of Canada that value coding because, like, you grew up with parents that wanted you to go to school. Your parents are pushing you to have a career, so you're gonna place coding as a higher value than music potentially, right? This is a thing, and so there's young people, like you said earlier, even in the most infant ages that you can go. There's a place up in Hyde Park here where you can go and you, as a little kid, and you can learn how to code. Yeah. So you're competing with coding. You're competing with people. I know some teenagers who are mining cryptocurrency. Right? You're competing with all kinds of things now for attention. Yeah. And so
you're 100%.
And so I think that, and even older people, even people who are older, you want them to come out and buy, shout out to Jay Allen and several people who've been on the show that have talked about this. They said, why aren't people are going out and spending money on these crazy, I won't mention names, but we know who I'm talking about, crazy, huge, massive tours with female and male artists that are, the ticket prices are like, absurd. They're 300 to endless, $1,000+ a ticket.
Exactly.
People will pay this. My buddy bought a ticket to her tour for his wife. A couple of tickets cost him $7,000 for a pair of tickets, right? I'm like, he can afford it, but that's not the point. That's crazy. Yeah. And so, to me, and these guys said it, Jay Allen said, a couple of people have said it, like, why are people doing that, but then they're not supporting the $10 ticket, the $20 ticket, right? Okay, well, my opinion on that is that, again, you're competing for attention. You're competing for people's attention again. It doesn't matter what age now, right? Everybody's technologically savvy. Everybody knows how to use a cell phone. Everybody's on YouTube, right? Boris, we talked about Boris earlier. Boris was learning an incredible amount working here, just watching YouTube videos on pedals. And then he would go play it after, but he would watch the videos first
as a tutorial,
and then go and play and hook up the pedal in the room.
100%. You're 100% right. We're scrambling for attention because there's so many alternatives. But you know what? Thanks for bringing me back from that comment about, so things have changed and appetites have changed, and I'm not so sure that and I'm sensing that there's a generation that just doesn't view music and appreciate music the way we do. But thanks for bringing me back, because you did remind me that, and I'm working with some of them right now, there is a cohort of youngsters that I'm talking 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are into live music.
Amazing.
Making it and listening to it and appreciating it. And there are bands like, Full Throttle and the Avro Project and EMBW, and some of those that I got to work with you guys during COVID.
Yes,
when we recorded the Battle of the High School Bands in your in your studio, and the Thunder Queens. So it's nice to see that pocket of bands, of kids, I should say, students who are playing music, making music, collaborating, bouncing from one project to another, and obviously they must be consuming it too.
Yeah,
they must be listening to music. So
that's I know a few of those bands. You mentioned a couple of the people in those bands have even worked here, but I think that, to be on a more positive note, I think those people are the ones that are and this is the funny part, is they don't even maybe realize it, but I hope they are listening to this show and they hear this. But they're the ones that are giving hope to what we're talking about, right? Because you got to put in the work, and they're putting in the work, right? And that's what it comes down to. Is I think it got too easy for some people, and technology played a role in that, to your point.
Yeah.
But I think that now it's time to get back to work. For all of us, for everybody who wants to call themselves part of the music community, it's time for all of us to get back to work. And speaking of work that you've been doing, let's talk about the award show. Let's talk about the London Music
Forest City London
Music Awards.
23 years, man.
What? Okay, here's my first question. What possessed you to start this?
It was interesting. So myself and fellow musician Ian Gifford thought that would be it'd be a good idea to celebrate some of our colleagues, some of our own, and I agreed with them. And actually, Ron was at the very first meeting in 2001 on campus at Western, where we had discussed this idea. And so I started moving it forward. And 23 years later, but Gifford and I started the project, and I am still to this day flummoxed as to how it's existed for 23 years.
It's amazing.
23 years, and it's grown into Canada's only city-specific music week, London Music Week.
Wow.
And Canada's only city-specific Hall of Fame, the London Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And we can talk about all of the illustrious, wonderful folks who are enshrined there. And I'm so happy to have Music City Canada part of the project this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate your support and your dedication. There's so much alignment there between the values of the music awards and what you guys are doing here. But the Hall of Fame, think about it. From London, Ontario, the longest tenured drummer for Santana, 13 years, Graham Lear from London, Ontario. The keyboardist for the band, Garth Hudson, London, Ontario.
Passed away recently. Rest in peace, Garth.
You know, Tommy Hunter, of course, Guy Lombardo, and all of the other greats in between. Kitty's enshrined in the Hall of Fame. I
remember that, yeah.
And they're still active, and they're still, as you mentioned, hanging around here. So London Music Week is June 1 to 8. All the events are free. The 2 award shows, one June 7 at Aeolian Hall, tends to concentrate more on the jazz, classical, world music categories. Then June 8 is more at London Music Hall, is more of the pop categories. There are events throughout the week, like the Women of London Music, Latin Street Party. You talked so astutely earlier about Latin rhythms, Latino rhythms, and the difference from the different regions. There's a hip hop showcase happening. Over 200 musicians are being honored as nominees. And by the time Music Week is done, over 300 musicians will have been paid to participate in London Music Week. And Ryan, it really happens because of organizations like yours. The London Music Hall of Fame gets zero support from the city.
Wow.
Zero support from the city. We get a little bit of city support to put together the Music Week. But when I say little, I mean little.
Right. It's
mom and pop establishments like you guys. And this year we've had a couple bigger organizations jump on board. Saylun Tire Canada is our title sponsor for the entire week. Nice. They see themselves as an independent organization and kind of believe in what we're doing.
That's cool.
But 23 years, and Ron was at the very first meeting. He was at the very first show at Club Phoenix, and 23 years later, it's still happening.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, where are you finding time for this?
Well, mostly I'm insane. Secondly, I
we share that trait.
Exactly. You're one to talk, pal. Yeah. I'm a bit of an insomniac. I don't sleep a lot, and honestly, I just can't forget all the awards. Let me answer it this way: the awards are a nice thing, okay, and it's nice. I've never won an award, but it'd be nice, I would assume, to say, "Hey, I got this. Thanks for acknowledging something."
Sure.
Thanks for acknowledging a song I wrote, or the fact that I can play an instrument well or something. That's great. That's good. But you know what it's really about? It's about, for one night, the whole music community comes together and pats each other on the back and says, that's cool. And maybe if it fosters some collaboration, like you were talking earlier, about those good old days in the middle 80s when we would play a 5-6 band bill, Thin Line, Sheep Look Up, The Waiting, It's a Schiza, and BFA, and everybody sharing gear. And no one is like, no, that's mine. Oh, no. Or arguing over who's going to close the show. It's really about just acknowledging the music community, helping to celebrate the music community, and really encouraging them. It's got to be tough to be you're dealing with it every day.
It's tough now more than probably ever before in some ways. Yeah,
to be a full-time musician,
absolutely, 100%. if that's even possible for some people, I mean, and then that's when the art suffers, right? When you have to invest a whole pile of your time into, working a full-time job, sometimes even two, depending on the situation. Some people are driving Uber at night and working during the day, and then they, writing on weekends and gigging and, trying to fit it all in. And eventually, you can't do that forever. You hit a ceiling, hit a wall, so to speak. But I think, it can be tough, especially if you don't have a team, especially if you don't have a group of people around you that are supporting you, that help you, get through some of this stuff. I mean, social media alone is a full-time job for some of these artists, right? Exactly. I mean, and that's just one facet of all the various facets you have to be, because, when I talk to some artists and stuff, I say like, you have to be doing what the majors are doing.
That's right.
At that level to get to that level. Like you have to be doing it right because, I mean, if you're fortunate enough to get a record signing, I mean, they're looking for people who have a social following, are doing gigs, are putting butts in seats, right? I mean, you have to already be on your way before they'll even think about looking at you, let alone investing in you.
In which case, then you need to shake your head and say, what the hell is it? Why do if I'm doing all this, what are you bringing to the party?
So I think things like the awards are great in the sense that, as well, I think the camaraderie and the getting together, the notoriety that you get from it, like you're saying, from your peers is amazing. But just having an opportunity to say, hey, I'm a London, Four City London Music Award winner. It means something. It means something to people out there, and it means something to the person. I'm a top 20 under 40 winner. Shout out to Gord from London Inc. And I have that on my mantle at home. I absolutely do, and I really appreciate. I really appreciate the honor, and I share that honor with so many other people, and we feel connected. I mean, one of the guys who comes to my house with vinyl is a 2019 winner, and I was giving out the awards that year. I was one of the people helping to give out awards, and that's where we met. We met at the Top 20 Under 40 Awards at the London Music Hall that night.
And you're going to inspire others.
Absolutely.
To work that. And I think that's part of it too. It's like, again, getting the piece of hardware, that's nice, but that's not really what it's about. It's about just acknowledging people who, as you said, are slugging it out to make their own music and paying their dues and sweating and bloodied and to write and record while they're working part-time jobs. And it's our opportunity to say, we're here. They're here. They're making great music. It's worthy of paying attention to. It's worthy of listening to. It's worthy of supporting. It's worthy of going down to whatever venue to go and watch a show. That's really what it's about. And so for people who understand that, they enjoy it and they celebrate something that's unique in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're in the London Music Hall now. I mean, you want to talk about people who are slugging it out, doing an incredible amount of gigs. I mean, Mike and Dimitri and even, Brandon Eady.
Yeah.
Everyone who's involved in that London Music Hall thing, hats off to those guys. Cause I mean, there's weeks that go by where they're doing 7 nights a week shows.
Yeah.
And, what that kind of reminds me of, I mean, I know some of that is obviously, promoters coming in and stuff, but, again, it's kind of like the comment I made about the young artists, right? Putting in the work, being that light, in the darkness. And you know what? Shout out to the Music Hall and the Manuel family. Shout out to Edie. Shout out to Eastside Bar. Shout out to to Mark at the Richmond. Shout out to Palisade, Marty.
You're doing a great job there.
I mean, at the end of the day, what they're doing is earning some money, fair, but they're putting in an incredible amount of energy, an incredible amount of work to do what they're doing. And they're giving what they're giving people as an opportunity to play their music is something that, as we talked about earlier, it has come down in terms of the availability of it all. So hats off to them. Hats off to them for giving you a space to do what you're doing with the awards, and all of these artists to play there. Because without the venues, where would we go to see this live music here in town? So that's an incredible thing, and I think the awards are an incredible thing. I think the Music Hall of Fame is an incredible thing. Hats off to you for doing that. I mean, I don't think anyone had the idea to do that before you, and if they did, they certainly didn't come to fruition. And I'm sure that was a lot of hard work for you to make that happen without subsidies, certainly. And so, there's a lot to be said about London. I mean, we were on a committee together. It was the London Business of Music.
Whatever happened to that, by the way?
Well, I mean, Corey, who was, sort of heading that with us, we kind of achieved a major milestone, right? Which was the UNESCO designation. And I think once that happened, the commitment to that for him became a real thing, and that became the priority. Maintaining that UNESCO designation, which, and I'm following his journeys and stuff, and it's a lot of work, but he's giving some great opportunity. Jordan McDonald, who I just had on the show, got a chance to go over to Italy and play over in Italy and walk the squares there and play for people from a completely different country that he's never connected with before. And
cool.
There's some opportunities, I think, that are being created through that are really great for artists in London, that are, and again, if they put the work in.
Yeah.
So for those people out there that are like, well, why is he getting it and I'm not? Well, you just, get in there, put the work in, get to know Corey and get to know Richard and contact the music office and get to know those people, and you'll get the opportunity too. And I think that the London, like you said, we've had a history of having incredible musicians and incredible music culture, but we're a global community now, right? And that's why I look at even my brand, Music City Canada, as a global brand, as a national brand for sure. And I think that that's one of the things that, we have to think about. We have something like 12,000 people from Colombia living here.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's for anyone that's watching this that didn't know that's going to be mind blowing for a city of 400 and some thousand people.
And look at the work that Dario Novoa is doing with Simple Reflections. He's been able in the last 6 years to stitch together the whole Latin community, whether you're from Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Colombia, and he's been doing that. You're right, and that is definitely something to celebrate. I really appreciate what you said previously about the venues. That it's almost like, there are fewer of them, significantly fewer of them, but thank goodness for the people who are doing it, like Marty and Jay at the Fitzrays, and
absolutely.
The good folks at the Richmond and so on and so on. It's almost like they've kind of fostered the Helen Holler philosophy of let's give them a place to play.
And some of them may not even known who she is until this conversation, right? But I mean, it's the passion for it.
Yeah.
It's the connection with those people and the willingness to want to give them a place to do what they do. And the vibe and the culture it brings to your venue is amazing. I mean, let's keep it simple. You talked earlier about jazz and stuff like that, like your dad was playing back in the day, Italian jazz and jazz music. I mean, some of the greatest times in my life, I've been on cruise ships, I've been in Europe, Toronto, across the US, all over the place. Some of the best places I've been is jazz music, and it's live music. And it could even just be a duo or trio. It doesn't even have to be a full band. Yeah. And just be a piano player playing grand piano.
Piano and voice.
I mean, live music is so important, and good on anyone out there who gives it exposure, because it can help with making money in your business, as again another tool in the toolbox, so to speak. But it's tough if a venue owner or a promoter or anyone is like, well, how many tickets are you going to sell? Right? Then it's more about popularity sometimes and less about the art. Some of the best artists I've ever seen, I never knew who they were. I've seen artists on cruise ships that were unbelievable.
You know as well as I do, there are a gazillion great songs that ears have never heard.
Right. Absolutely. I had a couple of guys come to Charterhouse here, and they had written basically 5 albums. There was one guy who wrote 5 albums worth of material. Yeah. And he was, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe he had cancer or something along those lines. And he wanted to record these before something happened to him. Mm-hmm. So he came in here, he was working with our producer, Aaron Murray, and he brought in session musicians and he recorded all these songs because he didn't want these songs to go away without being heard. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's a it can be a crazy ride, but anyway, that's
so for me personally, Ryan, just as we wind down, I mean, I was part of a scene a long time ago for a short time, but where it seemed that everybody encouraged each other. We encouraged each other to play. We collaborated. We would support each other. We would go to each other's shows. If you were an opener for, name the band, you wouldn't leave after your set. You'd stick around and pay respect.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you were the closer, whether it was Call the Office or the Embassy or Fry Fogels, you would hang out and snoop around and watch the openers. It was all that sense of community. And I think that's what the project is really about. It's making sure that we support each other, encourage each other, let people know, hey, man, what you're doing, that's cool. That's great. We appreciate it. How many people are going to make it out of London, Ontario to become the next Billie Eilish or whatever? Name the flavor.
The ones that really, 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 really want it and put in an incredible amount of energy. That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's a lot, but if you want it bad enough, you can get there, but
That's right.
But it's a lot.
Yeah.
So you got to be prepared for it. Anyway, thanks for coming in, man.
This has been an absolute distinct pleasure. I mean, getting to know you, chatting so broadly about a whole bunch of things. And I got to tell you, I learned a couple things, maybe more than a couple things, but thank you so much. Tribalism is important, and it's a tool in the toolbox until it's not.
That's right. And so 2 things. What's in the future for you other than obviously the music awards? Is there anything else that's coming up for you?
Hopefully retirement. And as soon as I can figure that out, I'm working on it. My family is pushing me towards that. We'll see. You know what? I'm really enjoying things. I'll be honest with you. And particularly even my work at the Digital Creative Arts Center at BGC, as long as I'm having fun, I'll stick to it. And we need to collaborate more. We need to do more things together.
Sure.
I get a kick out of creating things.
Absolutely. So do I. And where can people find you and the things you're involved with? Where can they check it out?
Digital Creative Arts Center at dcaclondon.ca, and the Forest City London Music Awards is FCLMA.ca. And other than that, just call Ryan right here at Music City, Canada, and he'll point you in the right direction.
Mario, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, man. I got to tell you, that was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Exhausting, though.
All good. Everybody, Ryan from Music City Live, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Take care. Thank you for watching Music City Live. If you liked this episode, like the video. And for more clips and episodes, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the conversation by commenting below and visit us at musiccityliveshow.com.